I thought she was just my brother's girlfriend. Pretty, polite, completely off limits. But then she looked at me like that, touched me like she meant it. And in the kitchen, everything changed. I never expected her to be the one I'd crave. I didn't expect her to stay with us. When my brother Liam casually dropped it into conversation over breakfast, mouth full of toast, phone in hand, I thought he was joking. Camille's apartment has a plumbing issue or whatever, he mumbled between bites. She might crash here for a bit. Might? I echoed, setting down my spoon. He shrugged like it was nothing. Just until her place gets sorted. Could be a week, maybe 2. And that was that. No discussion, no heads up. No asking if I was okay with someone else's perfume lingering in the hallway every morning or hearing unfamiliar footsteps at night. But Liam had always been like that. Easygoing, oblivious, assuming the world would mold around him. 2 days later, Camille arrived, and everything changed. She showed up on a cloudy Friday evening, rolling a soft lilac suitcase behind her and balancing a laptop bag over one shoulder. She was dressed casually, ripped jeans, a tank top that slipped off one shoulder, and her hair pinned up with a few strands tumbling free. She smelled like cinnamon and something floral. Her smile was wide, easy, and completely unbothered as she stepped inside, spotting me just behind Liam. "You must be the famous little sister," she said brightly, offering a small wave. I hated that phrase. Famous was Liam's word, not mine. "Just his sister," I replied, giving a half smile before stepping back to let her through. Camille grinned wider, brushed past me without hesitation, and strolled inside like she'd been here before. Her confidence made it easy to forget this was her first time staying with us. That night, Mom cooked a special dinner to welcome her, even though she'd once told me she found Camille a bit too bold. Dad, predictably, tried to impress her with bad puns and half-remembered stories from his university days. Liam remained half-absent, more interested in his phone than his girlfriend, while Camille fit into the scene with practiced ease. She laughed at Dad's jokes, complimented the curry, and offered to clear the table when everyone was done eating. I lingered in the kitchen afterward, drying the dishes, half hoping for silence. Instead, Camille joined me. Her sleeves were rolled up, and her rings clinked softly against the glasses as she washed. She moved like someone who had always belonged in kitchens, deliberate but graceful. At one point, she glanced over at me and said, "You don't talk much, huh?" I shrugged. "I talk when I have something to say." "I like that," she replied, rinsing a plate. Most people fill silence just to feel better. When she passed the plate to me, our fingers brushed. I pulled back just slightly and instantly regretted the reaction. She noticed, of course. Camille always noticed. "You okay?" she asked, tone even. "Yeah," I said quickly. "Just tired." She didn't push. That alone made my chest feel strange. That night, I lay in bed listening to the soft hum of her voice in the living room. Liam had her laughing at something, probably one of his ridiculous gaming clips, and every time she giggled, I felt it like a ripple through the walls. I turned onto my side and pulled the blanket higher, trying to block her out. But it wasn't her laugh that kept me awake. It was the way her voice had sounded just to me, low, amused, careful, and her scent, and the heat of her fingers when they touched mine, even briefly. By morning, she was already in the kitchen, barefoot and wrapped in one of Liam's oversized t-shirts. A tea mug steamed in her hands as she leaned against the counter. Sunlight spilled through the curtains, lighting the space in golden warmth. She looked up as I walked in. "Morning," she said softly. "Morning," I returned, heading for the kettle. I focused on it too intently, pretending I couldn't feel her gaze. But she kept watching. "You're an early riser too, huh?" I nodded without looking at her. "Usually?" She smiled faintly and sipped her tea. "I like mornings. They're honest. No makeup, no noise, just people being who they are before the world kicks in." I didn't answer. I didn't know how. Later that afternoon, Liam went out to meet some friend for coffee. Camille stayed home. I was in the kitchen again, attempting banana bread from a recipe I'd saved ages ago. I didn't expect her to appear. But she did, barefoot again, hair tied up messily, watching me from the doorway with that unreadable expression. "You bake?" she asked as she slipped onto the stool beside the island. "Trying to," I said. She tilted her head, eyes flicking over the mess I'd made. "You've got flour on your nose." I reached up instinctively and wiped it, cheeks burning. "Great." Her smile widened just a little. "It's cute." I froze. "What?" "Nothing," she said as she stood and came around the counter. "Here, let me show you something." Before I could react, she stepped behind me and took my hands gently in hers, adjusting my grip on the spatula. Her chest pressed against my back, warm and steady. "Stir in slow circles," she said near my ear, her voice soft and instructional. "Not like you're fighting it." My heart stuttered. She lingered there for a moment longer before pulling away, her touch leaving a ghost behind. "Much better," she said with a casual tone, walking back around like it meant nothing. I kept stirring, pretending like I hadn't just stopped breathing for 5 full seconds. She perched on the stool again, crossing her legs. "You and Liam are really different." "Yeah," I said, trying to sound normal. "We are." "I like that," she replied. "You're quieter, but not in a boring way, just aware." I looked at her, unsure what she meant or what to do with the sudden heat blooming in my chest. "Thanks, I think." She gave a light shrug, then stood up. "Let me know when it's done. I want the first slice." With that, she walked out, leaving the scent of cinnamon and something unplaceable behind. I stared down at the batter, my hands trembling slightly, and realized I couldn't remember what step I was on. Nothing felt quiet anymore. Not the kitchen, not my thoughts, not even me. What I knew was whatever this was, it had already started. For the next few days, Camille made herself part of the house like she'd always belonged. She floated between rooms barefoot, her hair always either up in a messy knot or spilling over her shoulders in soft waves. She wore Liam's hoodies and drank her coffee with too much sugar. And somehow, no matter where I went, whether I was organizing the spice rack or just hiding behind a textbook, she always found me. It started small, little moments. One evening, Liam wasn't home yet, and Mom had asked me to prep dinner. I was chopping vegetables, sleeves pushed up, when Camille drifted in with a half smile and leaned against the fridge like she wasn't planning to help but also wasn't planning to leave. "Want a sous chef?" she offered after watching me for a moment. I glanced over. "Only if you know how to cut carrots without turning them into confetti." She laughed, walking toward the cutting board and grabbing a spare knife. "I've got hidden talents." We worked side by side, bumping elbows and brushing hands. Every time our fingers touched, I felt it in my spine. Sharp, unwanted, impossible to ignore. Her arm brushed mine more than once, and she didn't flinch. Neither did I. At one point, she reached across me to grab a bowl, her body pressing lightly into my side. I froze. She didn't. Afterward, while the curry simmered and the rice steamed, she sat on the counter beside me and swung her legs idly. "You've never had a girlfriend, have you?" she asked suddenly. The knife in my hand slipped slightly on the cutting board. I didn't look at her. "That's random?" "Just curious." I took a breath. "Number I haven't." "Not even kissed a girl?" she added, voice softer now. I set the knife down carefully and met her gaze. "Why are you asking?" Camille shrugged, eyes scanning mine. "You seem like someone who's felt a lot, but never said it out loud." I opened my mouth to reply, but nothing came out. She slid off the counter, brushing her fingers briefly against mine as she passed. "Dinner smells good," she said, like she hadn't just cut through me with that observation. That night, I couldn't stop replaying her words, felt a lot. Never said it out loud. She wasn't wrong. I'd spent years feeling everything too deeply. Admiration that morphed into longing. Curiosity that turned into sleeplessness. And now, with Camille, it was like someone had opened a door I didn't even realize I'd locked shut. The next day, it rained. The kind of steady, rhythmic drizzle that made the whole house feel quieter. Liam was working from his room, headphones on, door shut. I came down to find Camille sitting at the kitchen table in an oversized sweater, painting her nails a deep forest green. Her bare feet tapped against the chair legs in a lazy rhythm. She looked up and smiled when she saw me. "You always wear that shirt?" I glanced down. It was my favorite. Soft, slightly oversized, with a tiny bleach stain near the hem. "It's comfortable." She leaned forward on her elbows, her voice light but not teasing. "It suits you. You have this soft thing going on, like you don't even know you're beautiful." My heart stumbled. I tried to play it off. "You're dramatic." She shrugged, turning back to her nails. "Maybe, or maybe I just say what I see." We sat in silence for a while, the only sounds coming from the rain tapping on the windows and the occasional clink of the polish bottle as she twisted the cap. Then she said something that caught me completely off guard. "Do you ever think about how some people just walk into your life and shift things without even trying?" I glanced at her. Her eyes were still on her nails, but her voice had gone quieter, slower. "You mean like wrecking balls?" I asked. She smiled faintly. Number not destructive. Just real. Like they make you question who you've been pretending to be. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The silence between us filled in the words. Later that night, the power flickered during dinner. My parents made jokes about the ancient wiring, and Liam launched into a story about some blackout at his office. Camille and I didn't say much. But when she passed me the serving spoon, her fingers lingered on mine again, too long to be innocent. After everyone had gone to bed, I stood at the sink, washing the last of the dishes. The window above the sink was fogged from the steam, and the kitchen smelled like curry and lemon soap. Camille came in behind me and leaned against the counter without a word. I didn't look at her, but I felt her presence. Calm, steady, intrusive in the gentlest way. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah. You're quieter tonight." "I'm always quiet." She paused, then said, "Yeah, but tonight, it feels like you're trying not to say something." I rinsed the last plate and turned to face her. "What do you think I'm not saying?" Her eyes flicked to my mouth, then back up. "I don't know. That's what makes it interesting." I crossed my arms. "Is this a game to you?" Her expression changed then, less amused, more serious. "Number not a game. I see you." That hit me harder than it should have. I looked away. Camille stepped closer, just a little. "You can pretend not to notice me all you want, but I know you do." I stood there, frozen, unable to speak. The only sound was the slow dripping of water from the faucet. She didn't lean in. She didn't touch me. She just stood there, letting the air hang thick between us before walking past me toward the stairs. As she reached the hallway, she looked over her shoulder and said softly, "I'll save you a slice of banana bread tomorrow, if you're nice." I let out a shaky breath only after I heard her door close. Upstairs, my room felt colder than usual, and I hated how much I already missed the warmth she brought with her. But that was just the beginning. Camille was in the kitchen again when I came downstairs the next morning. She was barefoot, standing on her tiptoes to reach the top shelf, wearing Liam's hoodie and a pair of sleep shorts that didn't even attempt to hide the curve of her legs. Her hair was loose today, slightly wavy, like she'd let it air dry overnight. She didn't turn when I walked in, but I saw her lips curve slightly. "Morning," she said, still reaching. "Do you know where your mom keeps the cinnamon?" "Left the cabinet," I replied. moving past her toward the kettle, behind the tea tins. She stretched higher, fingers brushing the tin, but not quite catching it. I hesitated, then stepped forward, placing my hand above here to grab it first. The moment our skin touched, she stilled, not dramatically, just noticeably. When I handed her the jar, she took it with a quiet thank you, but didn't move away. We stood too close. On purpose. "Are you always this helpful in the morning?" she asked, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Only when the person I'm helping doesn't get in the way of my tea." She laughed softly and moved to the counter, opening the jar and inhaling deeply. God, I love cinnamon. It smells like things that should never be rushed. I didn't answer. I wasn't sure what to say anymore. Everything between us felt like it meant more than it should. Every word, every glance, every silence. Like we were having two conversations at once, the one out loud and the one underneath. That afternoon, the house was unusually quiet. My parents were at a wedding, Liam had gone to the gym, and for once, I had no plans to escape to the library or pretend to be busy. I was curled on the couch with a book when Camille dropped onto the floor beside me with a sigh, legs crossed, holding a bowl of grapes she'd clearly stolen from the fridge. "You know you don't have to disappear every time I enter a room," she said as she popped one in her mouth. I looked at her over the top of my book. "I won't disappear." She smirked. "You vanish. You hide behind homework and recipes and tea kettles." I raised a brow. "And you linger." Her smile widened. "Is that a bad thing?" I didn't answer. I couldn't, because I didn't know anymore. Her presence had gone from inconvenient to addictive. Every time I thought I'd adjusted to the noise she brought into the room, she shifted it, turned it softer, deeper, quieter, but no less consuming. She held out a grape. "Want one?" I reached for it, but she pulled back slightly. "Say please." I rolled my eyes, but my voice came out softer than intended. "Please." She placed the grape in my hand, her fingers brushing my palm as she did. I stared at it for a moment longer than necessary before eating it, trying not to notice the way she watched my lips. There was a long pause before she spoke again. "You ever think about kissing someone you shouldn't?" I closed the book. My heart thudded in my chest, slow and loud. "What are you doing, Camille?" She leaned back on her hands, still looking at me. "I'm just talking." "No, you're not." I stood up too quickly. "You're doing something else. You're testing things." She tilted her head, like she was considering that. "And if I am? Then it's not fair." Her voice dropped. "To who?" I stared at her, willing her to back down, but she didn't. She only stood slowly, rising to her full height, her gaze fixed on mine. There was no smile now, no playful teasing. Just something raw, honest, and terrifying. "Do you think I don't notice?" she said. "The way you look at me, like you're afraid and fascinated at the same time?" "I don't," I started, but my throat closed up. She stepped closer, not touching me, but close enough that I could feel the heat between us. "I know what this is, and I know you do too." I backed up slightly, heart pounding. "You're with my brother." "I know," she whispered. "So then what are we doing?" Camille took a slow breath, like she didn't have the answer either. "I don't know, but I've never felt like this in someone else's kitchen." I let out a shaky laugh, not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what else to do. She reached out then, her fingers brushing the edge of my sleeve before dropping away. "I think you see me more clearly than he ever has," she said, and I wish that scared me more than it does. She left before I could respond, disappearing up the stairs with the same quiet grace she always had, leaving nothing but that sentence clinging to the air like perfume. That evening, Liam returned and brought noise with him. Video game chatter, the smell of his protein shake, his voice booming through the hallway. Camille sat beside him on the couch during dinner, nodding along as he told some pointless story. She smiled at all the right parts, laughed when expected. But I noticed the way she didn't look at him the way she looked at me. After dinner, she volunteered to do the dishes. Liam gave her a grateful kiss on the cheek before heading upstairs. I was wiping the counters when she turned to me, her hands still wet. "Is it weird that I like it better when he's not around?" she said without looking at me. "Yes," I answered honestly. "It is." She smiled sadly. "But it's true." I stood there, the sponge still in my hand, unsure what to do with the fact that we were now fully in this gray space. No labels, no excuses, just possibility. And tension. Lots of it. As I turned to leave, she said quietly, "I won't do anything you don't want me to." I paused, hand on the doorway. "That's the problem," I murmured. I don't know what I want anymore, but even as I said it, I knew that was a lie, and there was much yet to come. Liam left early that morning. Something about a client meeting across town, something about traffic and timelines. I only half listened. He kissed Camille's temple and left with a banana in one hand and his laptop bag in the other, his goodbye barely more than a mumble. By 9, the house was still. My parents were out for the day too, some relative's birthday party I had gratefully declined. And suddenly, it was just Camille and me, alone. She was in the kitchen when I came down, barefoot again, standing in front of the open fridge wearing a thin white t-shirt and sleep shorts. Her hair was twisted up carelessly, a few strands hanging loose around her neck. The sunlight spilled through the kitchen window, catching the edges of her skin in gold. "You want pancakes?" she asked without turning around. I hesitated. "Sure." "Good," she said, closing the fridge and turning to face me with a lopsided smile. "Because I don't know how to make anything else." I watched her move through the kitchen like it was hers. She cracked the eggs one-handed, stirred the batter lazily, hip leaning against the counter. She looked soft in the morning light, unpolished, warm, barefoot, and glowing, and so utterly unattainable that it made my throat ache. "Can you grab the cinnamon?" she asked without looking. I moved toward the cabinet, brushing past her, the edge of my arm grazing her side. Neither of us flinched. When I handed her the jar, our fingers touched, and this time, she didn't let go. Her gaze lifted slowly, eyes locking with mine. Her fingers still curled around mine, even as the cinnamon tin dangled forgotten between us. "Do you want to tell me to stop?" she asked, voice quiet. I didn't answer. She stepped closer. The tin hit the counter with a dull thud as she let it go and reached for my wrist, holding it gently. Her touch was feather-light, but grounding. Her other hand came to rest just above my hip, her thumb pressing into the cotton of my shirt. "I shouldn't be doing this," she whispered. "But you are," I said, breath caught somewhere in my chest. Her forehead dropped against mine. She was so close now, I could smell her skin, fresh and sweet and faintly like honey. The air was thick. My hands, trembling, came to rest at her waist, unsure of what I was allowed to touch, but unable not to. "I can't stop thinking about you," she said. "It's like I walk into a room and you're the only thing I feel." I blinked. "Then why do you keep pretending you don't?" She didn't answer with words. She kissed me. It was slow, deep. Not tentative, not playful, like something stored away too long had finally cracked. Her lips moved against mine with certainty, her fingers sliding up beneath my shirt, finding the bare skin of my lower back. I gasped into her mouth, my body arching into her touch like it had been waiting for this. The counter pressed into my back as she guided me toward it. Her hips aligned with mine, her hand rising to cup the side of my face, tilting my head back to deepen the kiss. She kissed like someone starving, careful but desperate, deliberate but full of need. My hands gripped the hem of her shirt. I slid them up slowly, discovering the curve of her waist, the tension in her spine. She exhaled softly when I touched her ribs, her breath catching as our bodies fit together like magnets with too much charge. The scent of cinnamon hung in the air. A few flour specks dusted the counter from earlier baking. The kitchen was warm, but she was warmer, burning through the space between us. She broke the kiss only to whisper, "Tell me if you want me to stop." "I don't," I said, voice trembling but sure. Her mouth moved along my jaw, down to my neck. She pressed a kiss just below my ear, her teeth grazing skin for half a second. My knees buckled slightly. Her hand found mine and pressed it firmly against the skin beneath her shirt, inviting me in. Her skin was hot. Software real. I closed my eyes and let myself feel her, no longer thinking, no longer afraid. Her hand slid down to my thigh, gripping just enough to make me gasp again. I leaned my head back against the cabinet, fingers tangling in her hair, pulse hammering in my throat. We didn't rush. Her body pressed into mine, one hand still at my waist, the other drawing slow lines across my ribs. When she kissed me again, it was deeper, slower, less hungry, more reverent, like she was memorizing me. When she finally pulled away, she rested her forehead against mine and closed her eyes. "We can't keep doing this," she said. "I know," I whispered, "but we already have." Neither of us moved for a long time. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was full. Full of breath, heat, confusion, want. She stepped back slowly, as if her body missed mine the second it wasn't touching me. She looked at me with something complicated behind her eyes. Guilt, yes, but also wonder, longing, need. I pulled down my shirt, smoothing my hair, trying to catch my breath as I leaned against the counter. Camille reached for the pancake batter she'd abandoned, staring at it like it belonged to another timeline. "I should finish these," she said softly, not looking at me. "Yeah," I replied, voice rough. "Okay." But neither of us moved. I knew this wasn't just about pancakes or stolen kisses. This was the moment everything changed. And no matter what came next, no matter what we tried to pretend, it had already happened. In this kitchen, between her and me. The pancakes never got made. Camille stood at the counter with the bowl in front of her, unmoving. I watched her from the kitchen doorway, half hoping she'd laugh and crack some joke to make it all disappear. She didn't. The silence stretched between us like wire, tense and fragile, humming with things we couldn't say. I finally left the room without another word, heart pounding, body still humming from the way she'd touched me, kissed me, held me like I was something she couldn't bear to let go. Upstairs, I stood in front of the mirror for a long time, trying to recognize the girl staring back. My lips were still swollen, my skin still marked by her touch. I didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel like anyone I knew. And worse, I didn't want it to stop. When I came back down later, Camille was gone from the kitchen. The bowl had been emptied, washed, and placed in the drying rack like nothing had happened. Like we hadn't kissed, like the world was ending. Like her hand hadn't been on my bare skin. And my breath hadn't caught in my throat just from the weight of her body against mine. I found her in the living room later, sitting cross-legged on the couch with a book open in her lap. She didn't look up when I entered, didn't speak, but I saw the way her eyes paused on the same line of the page for too long. I sat down on the opposite end of the couch, keeping a safe space between us. My throat felt tight. My hands wouldn't stay still. "You okay?" I asked after a moment. She didn't look at me. "I don't know." Neither of us spoke for a long time. The clock on the wall ticked louder than usual. I picked at the edge of my sleeve, waiting for her to say something. Anything. Finally, she closed the book and let it rest in her lap. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't confused. I turned to her slowly. Her eyes were on the floor. I wanted it. she said. I want you, and I don't know what to do with that. My heart thudded, too heavy in my chest. You're with Liam. I know. Then why are you here? I asked, my voice cracking at the edges. Why me? She finally looked at me. Her eyes were glassy, but steady. Because you see me. Because I don't feel like I have to perform when I'm around you. Because I haven't felt something this real in a long time. My breath caught. I didn't know whether to feel honored or destroyed. What happens now? I whispered. Camille leaned back into the couch cushions, exhaling shakily. I don't know, but I needed you to know it wasn't a mistake. We sat in silence again. This time, it wasn't charged or electric. It was heavy, sad, honest. Later that night, I watched her from the hallway as she walked into Liam's room. She didn't turn back, and I didn't call after her. I didn't sleep. Not really. I lay awake in the dark, the sheets twisted around my legs, my chest aching with questions. I thought about her hand in mine, the way she whispered against my skin, the way she said my name like it meant something. The next morning, Camille was already dressed when I came downstairs. She wore a black sweater and jeans. Her makeup was done, hair pulled back. She looked perfect, polished, like nothing had happened. Liam stood beside her, arm slung casually around her shoulder, talking about some movie they were planning to watch that night. She laughed at something he said, and for a second, I believed it. Believed she was happy. Believed I had imagined all of it. But then her eyes met mine across the room. And I knew. That night, after dinner, she found me in the kitchen again. I was rinsing out a mug when she came up behind me, close, but not touching. Don't worry, she said softly. I'm not here to ruin your life. You already did, I said before I could stop myself. Her breath hitched. I'm sorry. I turned around, facing her fully now. I don't want you to be. Camille blinked. Her lips parted, but no words came. I just want to understand, I said. Why do something you know you can't follow through with? Her voice cracked when she replied. Because for a moment, I felt alive again, and I was selfish. I stepped back. So that's all it was? No, she said quickly. God, no, it was too much, too real. That's why it scares me. We stood there, two people caught in the wreckage of something beautiful and broken. Something we never meant to begin. I should go, she said finally. I nodded, even though every part of me wanted to pull her close again. She took one step back, then another. But before she left the room, she turned back. You changed something in me, she whispered. Whether I want to admit it or not. And then she was gone. I sat on the floor of the kitchen for a long time after that, the tile cool against my skin, the silence deafening. I knew nothing would ever feel quite the same again, because she had seen me, touched me, left me, and part of me still wanted her to walk right back through that door. What now? If we keep going, how do we face a world that won't understand? We can't undo it. So tell me, would you walk away or risk everything for this? Drop your thoughts below and don't forget to subscribe.